administrative officers who have been interdicted over corruption cases as reported by this entity. Now, what's the plan? What's the way forward? Like Robert usually says, maybe we need to, drag a little bit when it comes to excitement, because we need to know what's going to be done to these culprits. And then, only then, should we be excited and happy about this work. So yes, I can say that we are kind of trailing on the right path, but we don't know where this path is going to lead us. But I would love to hear from these two handsome gentlemen and the beautiful lady. Speaking of which, Mollen, good morning.
Yes, a very good morning to you, and of course I want to say good morning to our viewers. It is interesting because some of the things, when you look at Parliament sitting, a decision is going to be taken. And I think yesterday's was just, the people at home, we also knew exactly which direction it was going. It's like it was all speaking everywhere. Yeah. And I think this is going to be a wake-up call to all the ministers. And this is something that the Speaker has constantly talked about. Ministers can think they can get away with certain behavior, but the same Parliament that they serve has guidelines and rules of procedure. So the moment you actually go contrary to that, you will be caught in the same net like Persis Namuganza right now. And now it is up to the mercy of the president, or the decision of the president to see her fate. But I say the Parliament already sealed her fate, and it's going to serve as a really eye-opener for most of the ministers, especially the absenteeism. The absenteeism in plenary sessions, they have always been called upon. The Speaker has spoken, but also the Prime Minister did talk about the same thing, and ministers still keep absconding some of these sessions. So I think Ugandans deserve better, and Parliament deserves better.
You know what? This Parliament, in my opinion, reeks of double standards. And I'll be explaining to you why I am saying what I'm saying much later on. Double standards are written all over this August House. But hey, it is what it is. Good morning, Felix.
Oh, good morning, Philo. How are you?
I'm lovely. How are you doing?
Awesome. So, what's the inspiration of that color? I need to know. Cause,
don't even do it.
I'm just saying. What's the inspiration?
Oh, Felix.
Well, it's I love the color, so I'm just.
Thank you. Yellow is actually one of my colors. So
probably towards liberation there, but anyway, it is what it is.
But in that spirit, though, I think it's worth celebrating. So yeah.
The color or the liberation?
Everything.
Well, as you do celebrate, I love the fact that, and I love your courage.
Thank you.
I love your courage. Yeah.
Thank you.
I expected that from Bob, not Philo. I know Bob has about a number of yellow ties and yellow shirts and yellow.
I'm sure he's going to be unleashing some of them this week.
He has all colors.
Well, I pick interest particularly in yeah, probably if one said that. But nevertheless, it is Tuesday. The month is almost done. The 50, how many days of January are almost coming to an end?
We're probably now in the 40th week. Probably. We're coming close to the end.
And sadly, we will be limping into the taking back of kids to school in early February. So everyone is also probably stuck with that thought as a scarecrow or as a nightmare, as a matter of fact. However, you did mention something to do with what happened in Parliament, and people are excited. I don't even know what they're excited about. I reserve that for later discussion, but I find we have one of the most hypocritic parliament in the world. No. They just approved that yesterday. We
need to just have like a whole rail down and we see who is winning at hypocrisy when it comes to...
Absolutely, but that institution, man, it's a joke. For me, in short.
I can tell you that we'll be having quite a detailed discussion about this, the occurrence, what happened yesterday, what does it mean, and all of that. But, Uncle Bob, good morning. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
I'm fine.
Are you though?
Good morning to you.
Yeah.
I'm fine. I must, thanks for that color. You look gorgeous and beautiful and pretty in yellow.
Oh, thank you so much.
Not to say that my sister putting on black.
What is wrong with black now?
Let me just move away from the colors and rush to Parliament. Now, for me, as I was watching this going on, I'm asking, how does this benefit the electorate, per se? You know, when Parliament spends all the time it has spent censuring a minister because of delegatory and disrespectful conduct. She still remains a member of parliament. She may lose her ministerial post, but she'll still be coming to parliament and in the salary. And I'm like, this time devoted to this, the commitment. I think the number of things I've seen in the August House, and maybe not so much action has been taken. But I think this parliament is more on issues of discipline. When we see Honorable Zake, when we see Pastor Namuganza, Honorable Princess, it seems it's focusing more maybe on discipline. We hope when others also act that we'll see the same pressure given. And I think the current speaker doesn't tolerate certain nonsensical acts in any form. Someone was saying bring evidence on Facebook on this, but still he never remained a commissioner. Now, if you come to the floor of parliament, the only issue I find very beneficial here is to the young generation. You know, when we were young, some of us who are blessed to go to schools, who never looked at marks but building a competent person, you had what they were calling debating clubs. I don't know if Philo, you were in any of these debating clubs.
I was in the debating club.
And
actually,
in these debating clubs, we had a resemblance of what parliament can be or should be. And I remember there were behaviors. If you are an honorable, you're on the opposers or proposers, whatever the motion was, fire is better than water, water is better, whatever. You know, that day, because it used to be Friday after lunch, you dress smart, you don't clap your hands and laugh all your jaws, and like I see what happens in parliament. It was like it was a sacred place, or you know, a holy ground. And we grew up when we were brought to a parliament.
Yes.
But unfortunately, when I saw what happens in parliament, I went back to my debating club.
yes.
That honor of being called a member of, you know, the
So
house.
what you're trying to say, the depiction we had of parliament
Yes.
is
When I
or was
came
better
here,
than the reality.
When I began watching parliament in session on UBC, and the parliament I thought I had in my head, and I grew up seeing through these debating clubs, it was the opposite. So for me, I'm just happy that yes, sanity, and I hope when I talk about sanity,
Yes.
sanity is restored in terms of these corruption scandals we hear. Integrity is restored, respect is restored. There are members of parliament who have become like comedians. Every time he gets, this nation is governed by, they just come for drama and they're given platforms. So we hope this is going to be a U-turn to bring back the glory or revisionate the glory of the August House. Because to be honest, I even look at where do they get the moral authority, if I may ask. Because today, member of parliament, they have these issues of relationships. See, now one said fathers who have abandoned their kids, the honorable speaker is battling with them. They bring kids there. So I hope the glory that this may be, you know, for us born again, there is what we call revival. The East African revival when it came to Uganda, we saw people confess their sins, people love God, people preach the gospel like never before. So we hope that we shall see revival in the August House.
Well, there you go, but also away from that, switching to health, some of the health news. Now, for the last couple of years, we've been talking about epidemics, we've been talking about quite some crazy things like COVID-19, all of that. But also, there is one seemingly epidemic that is really starting to eat us up. And if we don't take it seriously, it's going to really do a number on us. And of course, according to the warnings from the Ministry of Health, malaria is really becoming such a heavy burden, and they did list down about 48 districts where we're going to be incurring some of this. So I don't know if Ugandans have really opened their eyes to this. We're taking it for granted, but it's actually very serious. And if it's coming in from the Ministry of Health, you do have all the reasons to believe and understand what they're talking about. So malaria, I remember back in the day how we used to hear about malaria, but you know, it would always be a little bit like a minor case. We never took it seriously. But look at us in 2023, it's becoming a major issue. So do all that you have to do to make sure that you are malaria free, or at least, like they say, prevention is better than cure. So do it. Make
I
sure
think
you can
people have
prevent.
gotten comfortable when it
Yes.
comes to malaria, and that is where the issue is. People have gotten comfortable.
Well, it's really, really sad. The mosquito nets, I don't know if people still use the treated mosquito nets, all that business of
There are
stagnant
those
water, the
government-issued
bushes.
mosquito
Yes.
nets, but I think it's just an effort that people no longer put the mosquito nets. Then if you also look at the seasons, by the way, malaria cases are also related to how much the seasons are changing in the country. And sometimes you have all that stagnant water across the homes and people don't even get rid of that. You have bushy places. Those are all breeding areas for for mosquitoes that actually do transfer the malaria. So I think people should be looking out for that. Make sure you clear of all that, the bushes, the stagnant water, so that you don't have breeding areas, and you can stay clear of that. And obviously the mosquito nets. It's no wonder that we have increasing cases of malaria. And even if you look at the death toll per year, most people die from malaria cases than actually other diseases in the country. So I think it is a huge concern, and I'm glad the ministry is trying to at least raise awareness on this.
Do you know what they call Mputu in English?
Felix should tell us.
Because some of
Mputu in English.
Some of these things, you know, what confuses me, this generation is more educated than the previous, isn't it?
Supposedly.
Felix, isn't it?
Supposedly.
Supposedly.
Depends.
That's why I asked Felix. Because you see,
it's what we were saying yesterday, Phil, if you remember.
if this
Education is
generation,
not about having the quantity of people
It's the quality.
carrying 10 kilograms of bags with whatever, with doodling in their bags, thinking they're studying.
Textbooks.
But
because
there
why
are
am
people
I
studying.
saying so? Generations we think were not educated, understood certain things. They will tell you in the evening, close the windows by 6, I think. Mosquitoes will enter.
Sawe,
Slash.
Ensiko,
You know, when you're
oil,
moving and you find these
stagnant
cans,
water.
turn them upside down, you know. Some even would go to some level of smoking their houses.
But Robert, in
Now
relation
we
to
have
what you're
sprays.
saying,
Those were,
you
but
see,
today
that's
there are
the problem.
sprays that kill the
That is why
mosquitoes.
One, and let me just say this quickly. This is a very unfair comparison from those people you're talking about. The people of the millennials, these kids of yours, what food do they eat? Money, food also determines mind your mood. You know that. That's why we used to be fed on a lot of fish. Those things are not for a joke. Yes, silverfish, mputa, semtundu. What are these people eating?
Chips, chicken.
Chips,
Pizza.
burger. Simanyi, hamburger, simanyi, homburger, simanyi.
Hot dogs.
Kind of nonsense. Kati omwana ali atya burger kuva ku myaka ito. Nolowooza n'abamu amagezo. Steak.
Tekubye nnyo.
Because honestly and truly, from eating, basula bwe. No, kati ensiri, I mean, the mosquitoes would, for us, as you've said, by 6,
Yes.
Missy, the honey mugaramba, this is 7, tell him no one is outside.
Yeah.
All of you are in the house, you do your sapule, musaba, nemuli echeggulo. Buliri. Now you're sleeping early, you're waking up, and everything is
Programmed.
is part of a good life, like a good health. But these ones, burger, waraj, burger, steak, then chidura, ndongo.
You talked about
What
food,
do you
then I
expect?
remember there is a research
Even
that
that-
actually came out
What do you
saying that there are certain foods that we eat that attract mosquitoes to our bodies. And you have to look out for those foods. There are certain contents in the food that will repel mosquitoes. And by the way, there are also oils that have been listed, like
about
lavender,
that, yes.
lemon. If you get like some of your lotions in the night or the oils in the night and you smear on your body, it repels mosquitoes. They can't bite you. And that is some of the research
But
that
are you
have come
aware
out
that even some of
scientifically.
the foods you eat do not boost your immune system?
That's
That's
what
why
I'm
people
saying.
like Felix never fall
Abana
sick.
bali
Do
abubi.
you know why? Because they
He
grew
never
up
falls
eating
sick.
Felix to
No,
fall
but
sick.
by the way,
Yes.
and I bless God for that, I can take 10 years.
Without getting an injection.
Because you don't eat burgers.
The man
Because of
grew up
sports and also that
The man grew
childhood
up eating
feeding.
bukupa. You know bukupa?
Well, it's good morning, Uganda. I can never. We will not stop with this, I will tell you for sure. But one thing here is that you need to take charge of your health. And it's just not about, you know, the medication, but how do you prevent it? How do you feed, physical exercise? All of these things need to be incorporated in your daily life. But also one thing you need to incorporate in your daily life is information and news, which we are about to give you right now. Local stories and international stories.
And we are beginning with what transpired in Parliament yesterday. The censure motion which was moved against Honorable Minister Persis Namuganza. Parliament censured the State Minister for Lands, Housing and Urban Development, Persis Namuganza, over the derogatory remarks and disrespectful conduct. This follows recommendations by the ad hoc committee that the minister be censured for her role in the Nagurunakawa land allocation and contempt of Parliament. Out of the 356 MPs who attended the Monday sitting, 348 voted in favor of censure, 5 voted against, and 3 abstained. This follows recommendations from the 7-member select committee led by Mbara South Member of Parliament Mwini Mpaka. The committee was selected to analyze evidence in the censure motion against Minister Namuganza. The motion was presented by Agago North Member of Parliament Amos Okot. Members of Parliament agreed to the recommendation.
Now, immigration has with immediate effect suspended the use of phones by staff at Entebbe International Airport, have access cards and dressed in labeled full uniform. Investigations will be conducted for the cases of fraud and extortion at the airport, and actions shall be taken through that, though members of the public should report with clear evidence of sabotage and missed flights. Last week, there was a public outcry on misconduct of immigration staff operating at the Uganda Entebbe International Airport for allegedly extorting money from travelers.
Moving on, police has issued a warning to all territorial commanders who charge victims seeking services of the canine department. This follows public concern that police officers charge for movement of sniffer dogs to scenes of crime. Police spokesperson urged the public to report any dog handler or station commander to the Professional Standards Unit.
Now, the Executive Director, Butabika National Referral Mental Hospital, Dr. Juliet Naku, has urged the public to support mental illness patients as a joint effort to fighting illness among the population. Now, the call comes at a time as Uganda and the world at large is still recovering from COVID-19 pandemic. Naku does emphasize that every person is equally responsible for ensuring patients in their community fully recover.
Looking at some of the stories across the globe, Japan's Prime Minister says his country is on the brink of not being able to function as a society because of its falling birth rate. Fumio Kishida said it was a case of now or never. Japan population 125 million is estimated to have had fewer than 800,000 births last year. In the 1970s, that figure was more than 2 million. Birth rates are slowing in many countries, including Japan's neighbors. But the issue is particularly acute in Japan as life expectancy has risen in recent decades, meaning there are a growing number of older people and a declining number of workers to support them. Japan now has the world's second highest proportion of people aged 65 and over, about 28%, after the tiny state of Monaco, according to World Bank data. And the 26-year-old man credited with disarming the California shooting suspect had never seen a real gun before. Late on Saturday evening, working at his family-run dance hall in Alhambra, Brandon Atsei found himself staring at one pointed directly at him. The gunman, identified as 72-year-old Hugh Cantran, later died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound in a van, according to police. The mass shooting is one of the deadliest in California's history. It began around 22:22 local time on Saturday at the popular Star Ballroom Dance Studio in Monterey Park, about 7 miles east of central Los Angeles.
And in Morocco, lawmakers on Monday voted to unanimously review ties with the European Parliament, accusing it of meddling after a resolution that urged the kingdom to respect press freedom. Members of both houses of Moroccan Parliament met in the capital Rabat for a joint session in response to the non-binding European text adopted on Thursday. In a statement after their session, the Moroccan legislators called the European resolution an unacceptable attack against the sovereignty, dignity and independence of the judicial institutions in the kingdom. They said it had seriously harmed the fundamental trust between them, and as a result, Moroccan Parliament decided to reconsider its relations with the European Parliament and submit them for an overall evaluation, said Rachid Talba Alami, Speaker of the House of Representatives. And in climate news, the world will be lucky to avoid 2.5 degrees Celsius of heating, but emergency technology may help avert even worse, Bill Gates has told a Sydney audience. The US billionaire and philanthropist told the Lowry Institute on Monday that while malaria still killed more children, 400,000 a year, the climate crisis was worth investing in massively because it will get worse and worse over time. There was no chance of limiting warming to the Paris climate goal of 1.5 degrees Celsius compared to the pre-industrial levels, and it was very unlikely it could be kept to 2 degrees Celsius, Gates said. The key is to minimize warming as much as possible, he said. At this point, to stay below 2.5 degrees Celsius would be pretty fantastic. I don't think that is possible. Gates remains among the world's richest people despite having donated $35 billion to mid-2022 with his former wife Melinda Gates and pledging another $20 billion.
Well, in more news and looking at our papers this morning, the New Vision, the headline, Namuganza censured, and how MPs voted. MPs, of course, are being shown celebrating after voting on the motion of censuring State Minister for Housing, Persis Namuganza. And looking at fraud, Lands Minister wants State House to probe her staff. And also in the budget section, 50 trillion Uganda shillings to deliver economic recovery, and also giving you Kamasanyu, a magistrate who fights for wildlife conservation. And also Namamve Luzira transmission line ready. Get yourself the New Vision this morning, but also the Daily Monitor.
Well, of course, how Namuganza talked her way into trouble. That is a big headline in the Daily Monitor. And budget cuts raise questions over government priorities. Now also, Uganda starts fast oil drilling. What is inside the papers is when you get yourself a copy of the Daily Monitor.
Well, before we get into the motivation song for today, I know that Robert over here wants to say a word or two.
There's so much happening. We hear now people are getting malaria, amongst other diseases. But what you need to do is boost your immune system. When your body is strong enough to fight off diseases, that means you will not fall sick, or you will rarely fall sick. And like my colleague talked about, what do you consume? Not everything is important to your body. So be selective. And I come to you with what is important to your body. This is Hallelujah Jinga tea, Hallelujah Tamarind drink, and Hallelujah banana juice. It's just 1,500. Any retail shop, any supermarket, get yourself a bottle.
Good morning, Uganda. We are still with you for the greater part of the morning. We're going in for one of the motivational songs for this Tuesday. When we get back, we'll be having a discussion between myself and Felix Nkonda on the newsreel about the censure. Yes. And thereafter, we'll be having some updates coming in from weather and climate. Mollen will be giving you all of that. And she'll also be giving you the traffic updates. And do not forget, we have the GMU agenda queued up as well. Sports updates plus GMU Extra. We'll be back after this break. Good morning.
This
Well, it's amazing and wonderful to have you here with us on the second day of the week, Tuesday, 24th of January, 2023. Good morning. Uganda starts right now. My name is Philomena, Mastiko. Of course, with the usual suspects, Felix, Robert, and Mollen, taking you all the way throughout this morning. A lot here in Uganda is clearly keeping us talking. Conversations are flowing in and out right from our August house. Well, I can say every time there is a plenary sitting, I will tell you that my interest goes high. And I'm not the only one. With all the action that is taking over this August house, why wouldn't I be? And why wouldn't you be interesting yourself in all of that? But also away from the August house, when we switch up to IGG, I don't know whether they're doing the job or are we finding it satisfactory enough that we are looking at about 50 chief administrative officers who have been interdicted over corruption cases as reported by this entity. Now, what's the plan? What's the way forward? Like Robert usually says, maybe we need to, drag a little bit when it comes to excitement, because we need to know what's going to be done to these culprits. And then, only then should we be excited and happy about this work. So yes, I can say that we are kind of trailing on the right path, but we don't know where this path is going to lead us. But I would love to hear from these two handsome gentlemen and the beautiful lady. Speaking of which, Mollen, good morning.
Yes, a very good morning to you. And of course, I want to say good morning to our viewers. It is interesting because some of the things, when you look at Parliament sitting, a decision is going to be taken. And I think yesterday's was just, the people at home, we also knew exactly which direction it was going. It's like it was all speaking everywhere. Yeah. And I think this is going to be a wake-up call to all the ministers. And this is something that the Speaker has constantly talked about. Ministers can think they can get away with certain behavior, but the same Parliament that they serve has guidelines and rules of procedure. So the moment you actually go contrary to that, you will be caught in the same net like Persis Namuganza right now. And now it is up to the mercy of the president or the decision of the president to see her fate. But I say the Parliament already sealed her fate, and it's going to serve as a really eye-opener for most of the ministers, especially the absenteeism. The absenteeism in plenary sessions, they have always been called upon. The Speaker has spoken, but also the Prime Minister did talk about the same thing, and ministers still keep absconding some of these sessions. So I think Ugandans deserve better, and Parliament deserves better.
You know what? This Parliament, in my opinion, reeks of double standards. And I'll be explaining to you why I am saying what I'm saying much later on. Double standards are written all over this August house. But hey, it is what it is. Good morning, Felix.
Oh, good morning, Philo. How are you?
I'm lovely. How are you doing?
Awesome. So, what's the inspiration of that color? I need to know. Cause,
Don't even do it.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. What's the inspiration?
Well, it's amazing and wonderful to have you here with us on the second day of the week, Tuesday, 24th of January, 2023. Good morning. Uganda starts right now. My name is Philomena, Mastiko. Of course, with the usual suspects, Felix, Robert, and Mollen, taking you all the way throughout this morning. A lot here in Uganda is clearly keeping us talking. Conversations are flowing in and out right from our August house. Well, I can say every time there is a plenary sitting, I will tell you that my interest goes high. And I'm not the only one. With all the action that is taking over this August house, why wouldn't I be? And why wouldn't you be interesting yourself in all of that? But also away from the August house, when we switch up to IGG, I don't know whether they're doing the job or are we finding it satisfactory enough that we are looking at about 50 chief administrative officers who have been interdicted over corruption cases as reported by this entity. Now, what's the plan? What's the way forward? Like Robert usually says, maybe we need to, drag a little bit when it comes to excitement, because we need to know what's going to be done to these culprits. And then, only then, should we be excited and happy about this work. So yes, I can say that we are kind of trailing on the right path, but we don't know where this path is going to lead us. But I would love to hear from these two handsome gentlemen and the beautiful lady. Speaking of which, Mollen, good morning.
Yes, a very good morning to you, and of course I want to say good morning to our viewers. It is interesting because some of the things, when you look at Parliament sitting, you know a decision is going to be taken. And I think yesterday's was just, the people at home, we also knew exactly which direction it was going. It's like it was all speaking everywhere. Yeah. And I think this is going to be a wake-up call to all the ministers. And this is something that the Speaker has constantly talked about. Ministers can think they can get away with certain behavior, but the same Parliament that they serve has guidelines and rules of procedure. So the moment you actually go contrary to that, you will be caught in the same net like Persis Namuganza right now. And now it is up to the mercy of the president or the decision of the president to see her fate. But I say the Parliament already sealed her fate, and it's going to serve as a really eye-opener for most of the ministers, especially the absenteeism. The absenteeism in plenary sessions, they have always been called upon. The Speaker has spoken, but also the Prime Minister did talk about the same thing, and ministers still keep absconding some of these sessions. So I think Ugandans deserve better, and Parliament deserves better.
You know what? This Parliament, in my opinion, reeks of double standards, and I'll be explaining to you why I am saying what I'm saying much later on. Double standards are written all over this August House, but hey, it is what it is. Good morning, Felix.
Oh, good morning, Philo. How are you?
I'm lovely. How are you doing?
Awesome. So, what's the inspiration of this color? I need to know. Cause,
don't even do it.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. What's the inspiration?
Well, it's amazing and wonderful to have you here with us on the second day of the week, Tuesday, 24th of January, 2023. Good morning. Uganda starts right now. My name is Philomena, Mastiko. Of course, with the usual suspects, Felix, Robert, and Mollen, taking you all the way throughout this morning. A lot here in Uganda is clearly keeping us talking. Conversations are flowing in and out right from our August House. Well, I can say every time there is a plenary sitting, I will tell you that my interest goes high, and I'm not the only one. With all the action that is taking over this August House, why wouldn't I be? And why wouldn't you be interesting yourself in all of that? But also away from the August House, when we switch up to IGG, I don't know whether they're doing the job or are we finding it satisfactory enough that we are looking at about 50 chief administrative officers who have been interdicted over corruption cases as reported by this entity. Now, what's the plan? What's the way forward? Like Robert usually says, maybe we need to, drag a little bit when it comes to excitement, because we need to know what's going to be done to these culprits. And then, only then, should we be excited and happy about this work. So yes, I can say that we are kind of trailing on the right path, but we don't know where this path is going to lead us. But I would love to hear from these two handsome gentlemen and the beautiful lady. Speaking of which, Mollen, good morning.
Yes, a very good morning to you, and of course I want to say good morning to our viewers. It is interesting because some of the things, when you look at Parliament sitting, you know a decision is going to be taken. And I think yesterday's was just, the people at home, we also knew exactly which direction it was going. It's like it was all speaking everywhere. Yeah. And I think this is going to be a wake-up call to all the ministers. And this is something that the Speaker has constantly talked about. Ministers can think they can get away with certain behavior, but the same Parliament that they serve has guidelines and rules of of procedure. So the moment you actually go contrary to that, you will be caught in the same net like Persis Namuganza right now. And now it is up to the mercy of the president or the decision of the president to see her fate. But I say the parliament already sealed her fate, and it's going to serve as a really eye-opener for most of the ministers, especially the absenteeism. The absenteeism in plenary sessions, they have always been called upon. The speaker has spoken, but also the prime minister did talk about the same thing.
You know, all of that, the details, give us the tea.
Well, what we did see yesterday is simply an activation of a principle that was propounded by one scholar, and he got us scholarly rhetoric of the law and principles of the same, who's called Thomas Aquinas. And I think in that particular principle, he brought and propounded that institutions of government must continuously and timely, without effect to any technicality, check each other. So that brings in the doctrine of checks and balances in the appreciation of the existence of the different arms of government. While you have the executive, the parliament, and the judiciary, you must take note that there's always going to be need for you to have these checks and balances. Nevertheless, they mustn't be interpreted to be an overstepping of each other's institutional mandate. Now, Parliament, in its valid and core obligation, it is given the ultimate right to consistently be that only institution that causes, one, approval, and later on, censure, as you may call. Now, censorship is was one of those things they put in the Constitution. I think particularly when you look at the powers given to the speakership under Article 90 of the Constitution around there, and probably in addition to the rules of procedure of Parliament, you notice that this particular authority given to the speakership of Parliament per se is one of the best ways to activate that interjection of checks and balances into government officials. In fact, just so you know, the speakership or the House has mandate or powers to censure any person it approves.
Yes.
And that takes in the judges, you take in
the president,
the IGG.
yes.
They can take in sometimes that, of course, yeah. It has a lot of power, depending on the intention of the censure. But having given that background and realizing that this definitely is a constitutional appreciation, it comes entangled with another Dracula of mishaps, if I may say.
Yes.
One, if you're to revisit the core purpose of government, it is legislation. And that's the primary. You may want to defer and talk about very many other things. Having addressed that by far, it then has to do one of the cardinal roles of checking. Now, the Honorable Persis Namuganza's issue of demeaning the stature,
yes,
and the decorum of the August House, in her opinion, what she has consistently said, she has belief that whatever she was saying was the right formation of her own opinion individually.
Yes. Yes.
Which later on, of course, would cause whatever it has caused, as one of the headlines in the papers was, she speaks her way out of...
well, her tongue really caused...
Through her
yes.
out. But when I was looking at this procedure being activated yesterday at Parliament and the number of turn-up of MPs I saw, and some of them were bold enough to say that they got calls. I remember one of them stood up and said, I was called, another call, then I got another call, so I will vote yes.
Yeah.
It became a theatre, clearly. Nevertheless, one would allude to the fact that Parliament is a theatre of politics. So it's not surprising that people
It wouldn't
act.
be the first time, though.
No, it's a theatre of politics. In fact, I wouldn't expect these people to behave like farmers or like cardinals. They are clearly, yesterday they proved they are being politicians.
If you've had benefits of doubt about how
yesterday,
political
if you saw what happened,
yes,
now you know that indeed Parliament is a theatre of politics. Now, when you talk about theatre, the layman may want to go to the further to appreciate what happens in the theatre. In the theatre, we have people who play roles. We have leading characters.
supporting characters.
Absolutely,
Yes.
we have people who will just be just pass by. So that's why you ended up having that kind of. But where is, having said all these things, the appreciation of the doctrines of law, the practice of Thomas Aquinas, the theater in the biggest question lies now beneath the realities of the essence of Parliament. Where is the common man? As the theater goers appreciate whatever happened, and the actors in the same, where does this leave the common man? One, what is the expectation of Ugandans in terms of representation? No wonder what we saw yesterday is a total defect and defeat of the word democracy, in my opinion.
Yes.
Was it important to understand the views of the represented about Namuganza's issue? Shouldn't we have had a discussion about consultation? If it was a matter that was handled with this nationality, the sense of nationalism, the way it was handled. I mean, where is representation in Parliament?
Representation of the legislators in their
The
own
common
selves,
man.
or the common man?
None of those representatives is there on their own.
Okay.
Namuganza could have erred on principle, and that's a matter of fact, in terms of breaking the debris of Parliament in her own way. But trust me, you, Philomena, where are the hearts of our legislators? Would we be wrong to think that we have misguided missiles, if I may borrow such a word? Truly, I have been consistent about two things in this country. The level of debate, and generally as a country. But secondly, the quality of debate in the August House. Now we have seen clearly where the interest of the August House is. And I stand to be corrected. There are many reports, businesses that Parliament has done since its inception. But shouldn't it have done more? Is really Namuganza a Ugandan problem?
I think the problem is way bigger than
honest.
that. Yes, we are centering it on the wrong person.
Focusing on the challenges we are facing in the country, and I can break down 10 right now off cuff. Look at education, the crisis we are facing today. Look at infrastructure, the crisis we are facing today. The economic challenges we are facing. Who's discussing how do we get Ugandans out of these challenges? This is good business, and this is part of business of Parliament. But how about the attention we give Namuganza? Isn't it over, isn't it above the belt? Does she really deserve this attention? Did Namuganza kill someone? Honestly and truly,
yes.
Did she kill someone?
So are you saying this issue was not exactly, it shouldn't have been as big as it was inflated, or it was actually inflated?
Do you know what's happening in Uganda, Philomena?
There's quite a lot.
There are people in this country who still die because of hunger. There are mothers who never get their way to theaters, and they die in corridors of hospitals. We still have people who die on roads every day because we have probably bad road users, someone who paid the corrupt officers, all these things. Schools are opening next week, probably around the 6th of February. How many parents will be able to take back kids? These are national problems. This is what we're talking about, the right to education.
Yes.
Uganda has never minted the required amount of money in terms of health care. Never in its budget. Per the Addis Ababa, I think the agreement in Addis Ababa, the convention that happened. Why are these sideline discussions of Parliament?
You know, indeed you're right. Somebody said at the start, I don't know whether it was you or either Mollen or Robert, but they did say, it seems our Parliament, the 11th Parliament, is more focused on discipline and indiscipline, and they're forgetting very many other issues that could probably take a major priority.
Who benefits? What's the benefit of discipline of government officials in terms of socio-economic development?
And anyway, what is discipline? What are the parameters?
And who decides who is disciplined?
The committees. We do have several committees.
And I'm trying to be as honest as I can. We need to look at this squarely. We're talking about an institution that sucks up the most of Uganda's budget, by the way. But where are our priorities? And not disregarding the credit that was given to this Namuganza thing. But don't you think we should be challenging our parliament more and more on terms of policy? Well, you know, the intention of censure, as I've told you, is for checks and balances.
Yes.
But when you're executing a check or checks and balances principle, you are supposed to deal with an overflow or a spillover. You get the point?
Yes.
That when one institution of government is overstepping the powers of another institution, it becomes a spillover. And that's when we execute things like censures and what. But you see, there's a clash of one thing we need to understand. There's a clash of personalities, character and personalities, and that happens everywhere. Trust me, this parliament will end up censuring even the speakers themselves. Because there are things we may not be in position to regulate. Character, personality. Last time I heard the Honorable Kahindo Tafile attacking Parliament.
Yes.
I'm waiting when they send him to the Committee of Rules and Privileges and whatever.
Yes.
He said in his own words, this thing is so big, we can't talk 2 minutes. And isn't that, we are waiting to see if they will also send him there. Or probably the proportions of gravity in what the settlements differs. Isn't this selective of justice?
Well, while we are at it, feel free to tell us what you think about the censuring and the process, and whether it was the right way of dealing with the right way of Parliament dealing with Namuganza. And get into our socials, 0709602592. Get into our Twitter, the hashtag is UBCGMU. Felix, I have one issue, and again, it zeroes back to the integrity of Parliament in itself. Namuganza was, of course, censured on allegations of misconduct and also giving out information that supposedly dents the integrity of Parliament. Indeed, the committee presented a lot of evidence, the interviews and some of the video clips that were taken of her on several media outlets. But my question here is, though, that as a legislator, doesn't this say much about, actually as a Ugandan, if I view it from this other side, doesn't that say much about the integrity of this parliament? Because if a fellow legislator has the audacity to question the operations of some of the committees in this August House, and she says what she says, does that mean that Parliament has lost its primary respect, its primary authority, has even lost its trust from fellow legislators? Because
I have had many members of Parliament attack Parliament.
Exactly.
I have had the Honorable...
Isn't this selective?
Lutamaguzi. I've had most of all the opposition. They have attacked Parliament in their own ways and fashion and style. I'm yet to await and see how. But
now they're going to deal with that.
Again, as you ask the question, we should also ask ourselves, Philo, what precedent are we setting? What's the intention? You see, it's for us, if you're doing a bit of the legalese, you may want to get to understand what's hidden behind the intention, for you to understand motive, probably later on, and if you're to deal with cross-examining, whatever. What is the intention? I can predict what may happen thereafter. You're going to see Namuganza run to court, and they may end up quashing this. Parliament is the biggest castigator of the freedom of speech. And in the Constitution, there was enacted by the same House earlier on, of course, by probably much more concentrated people. They enacted and put it under Chapter 4 of the Constitution. And the purpose of the right of speech was to avoid such kind of things. Namuganza is no longer a minister, she's a member of Parliament.
Yes.
She's going to still be sitting in the same house. What's the effect of the censure?
They've taken away her ministerial powers.
But still sits in the House
but she's
as a
still
member
in the
of
parliament representing Bukono.
Who's fooling who now? Or what's most painful? Taking the ministerial post or the member of parliament?
Or both. There is that.
You see, Philo, and sadly, we live in this country with such around us. I think because we are voters of the members of the August House, we have a right to have a discussion about the demeanor of this house. People were yesterday amazed by the turn-up. Isn't that an issue for us to discuss?
Felix, honestly speaking, I have never seen such a big number of parliamentarians.
At least for this
in the
particular
moment, yes,
11th one.
Yes, this 11th parliament. I have never seen such a big number
They
of
didn't even have
parliamentarians
enough.
converge.
People voted on Zoom.
The people who are called, and they were honest, they were very honest about it. Like you did say, I was called. Are you supposed to be called to come and attend the sittings?
No. So I think yesterday what happened gives us quite a baseline to judge Parliament on particular aspects. And I can tell you that one of the biggest problems of Kampala, where the Parliament sits, is not Persis Namuganza. And to add, a minister has been censured on a matter not directly related to her ministerial performance. Don't be shocked if the president doesn't accept this. Don't be shocked. And I'll tell you why. You may sit here and remind me in days to come. One, when all this hullabaloo started, it is only prudent for the boss of this particular madam, Honorable Persis Namuganza, to have called her. And the first line in person will be the Prime Minister. Like with whatever is happening, the committees, because she skipped how many times to attend the committee. Many times we were called, she sent lawyers, they were cat and mouse all the time. That's the point where probably the Prime Minister should have said, excuse me,
yes,
I think you need to. We have not had a statement from the Prime Minister. Who's her in-house boss? Now, step up the President. Have you ever had a comment from the President about Persis Namuganza's demeanor? So, the biggest event of this year, or the opening event of this year,
yes, for now, because
is
we don't know
going
what's
to
yet
be
come.
when Parliament is work is thrown out of the gutter or out of the window by the appointing authority.
Yes.
I don't know how these people are going to feel. What happens if the president refuses whatever the Honorable Speaker is going to write to him, informing him of what you did? We have seen such things before here. It is a country where we have seen someone act in capacities of even at the level of CJ, yet they are not qualified to. The biggest challenge we are going to face today is where our interests as a country. And all of us are happy. I saw a couple of people tweeting and Parliament. This is not, and for me individually, as one of the people who has grown up in this country and has seen a couple of things happen, yet others don't happen, I wish one day to see a Parliament that avails the same strength in endeavoring that all students in this country have access to quality education. This is possible. If we have a full debate, a full house debating this, and one of my colleagues was telling me that no, you can't have for debating such policies because of the lowered bar. In debates like this, they don't need intellectual thought because they don't need anyone to think a lot, to research. You just come and say yes, no. If there is payment to that effect, you get it. If there is no, you get the point. It's a yes, no thing. So I think this should inform us on how we should check ourselves as a August House. I have seen another challenge.
Yes.
If you have noticed keenly, there's another riffraff between the Honorable Joel Senyonyi and the office of the speaker.
Yes.
About a report. Joel comes out to the public and says, guys, I gave these things long time ago.
There are two contradicting statements, and there is kind of evidence to show for some of these statements.
Both of them are
saying
are legitimate
yes.
in that effect. And yesterday, the last tweet I saw, I don't know how true it is, but one of the tweets I saw from Joel saying that there have been calls to the members of COSASE that they should send a vote of no confidence against him. So probably he's the next in line. Just like we saw Zake, we've seen passes, and as probably Robert said, this is a parliament of discipline.
But you see, it's not even the first time. We also had a motion that had been passed by the opposition. I think it was early last year, and they wanted to censure the Minister for Security, Major General Jim Muhwezi. Of course, that didn't turn out well. But again, there are reasons as to why some of these things move.
Yeah, you don't play with some elephants.
Well, it's good morning, Uganda, and we are having a conversation about the censure of probably previously State Minister.
Have you ever hunted? Would you? Anyway, that's a wrong question. When you're going to hunt, if you're going to hunt an elephant, you don't take the same tools you take to hunt a rabbit or a hyena. So probably for them, there was some of. I'll leave it at that. Anyway. But you need different tools to hunt.
There is feedback coming in here from some of the viewers, and there is a gentleman called Cuthbert who is watching from Barra. He says, "Good morning. We have seen multiple moral deformation in public. However, the censure is viewed valid because the head should be on a straight lead." Thank you so much. And Olive says, with all the moral defamation, I think it was defamation, with all the moral defamation we have seen in Parliament and several MPs taking part in all of it, why would we have to pick Namuganza? Is she going to be the example that everybody should follow?
And honestly, I believe with what she's actually saying.
Yes.
And it was sad for me to see fellow women not lodge an inquest. Because this is where sometimes feminism should come in. You know, you should ask the relevant questions. Isn't this like a witch hunt?
Is this where we are drawing the line at?
Namuganza is a princess.
Oh yes, she's Namuganza princess.
Is it a name or?
It's actually a name.
Oh,
it's
lovely.
A name. Yes, but where do we draw the line, Felix? Where do we draw the line when it comes to parliament operations, and where do we draw the line when it comes to having equal application of the law to everybody? Why do we have to pick out a few? Is it that they're playing on other people's emotions, or is it how do we do this to make sure that everybody receives what belongs to them?
Well, in Uganda, actually even the Bible, there's that story about the virtuous woman. In Uganda, we have many sayings that I remember when we were young, my granny sometimes would tell me, in the morning when you're leaving and you find a particular type of women, you may have to go back. What I'm saying is sometimes women be women, with due respect. And some of these fights, again, have been alluded to being a bit stretched to that point that people could have looked at things a bit, some things were ignorable. You could have ignored this or that. Now, where the line should be drawn, you see, the formation of politicking in a civilized society was not meant to abscond from true moralities or customs or practices of a particular society. Politics is meant to give shape and direction. And the purpose of this is because there is an existing social contract between the wananchi and the politicians. A social contract basically means that we have given our powers to you through a process called voting. Now, that you will use these powers to execute the most relevant agendas, policies, motions, legislations on our behalf. Okay? Because we have agreed that, Philomena, you go and do this on our behalf. The biggest question that answers what you're asking The line must only be drawn to what benefits Ugandans. Trust me, no one would have accused the parliament, and I stand to be corrected, if this discussion was sidelined for a discussion about the status of roads in Kampala. If Honorable Madam Chisaka was in the hot seat yesterday being questioned about the bad roads, the potholes, the drainage, we are saying, no, let the Namuganza issue wait. These things. People's cars are being broken every day. You go to Old Port Bill, is it Old Port, as you go to Bugolobi from, is it Meat Park?
It's actually the Old Port Bill Road.
Yeah, Old Port Bill Road. There are ditches. We need to question, this is central business area. If the mayor was being questioned, why don't we have lights on Kampala? Sidelining, I'm trying to give a justification of where the lines should be drawn. Like if the mayor was yesterday being asked, let's wait for the Namgaza, we shall deal with it as a by the way. But the mayor tell us what is happening. And
probably take advantage of the fact that all MPs were in the House, or at least the biggest percentage.
Yes,
and
we would want to know.
We hear what they have to say about the real important issues.
The Minister of Internal Affairs being questioned. Police, what are you going to do about the budget shortages? How are you going to raise funds? Do you get into cooperations with non-government organizations? Should we be helping? How can Parliament recommend which institutions you can partner with? Do we go into industrial parks? Do we make security one of the incentives that one should be part of to give you a tax holiday as an investor? That maybe you... This is the yardstick to actualize or to bring to life the social contract, representation. No wonder in one of the biggest writings in Africa by the late Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, he challenged these things called democracy and representation. Said this is false. Do not be lied, anyone can represent you. And now I come to believe from what we see happening today. Are we really represented? Did you feel represented yesterday?
No, I absolutely
have you felt represented in the past 1 year or so? So what's the use of representatives if the people to be represented do not feel represented? I don't even care how Honorable Namuganza speaks. I care about how my kids survive in this country. We've been talking about pandemics. Look at how many people die because of malaria. I stand to be corrected, but I wait for a day when Parliament will organize corporate social responsibility to mobilize for probably the disabled people in Kampala.
Yes.
The increased number of street kids, actually now no longer street, adult street, I don't know what they call them.
They're street adults, I guess.
Adults, maybe that.
Yeah.
Actually, the number of adults now supersedes the number of kids. I don't know when the exchange happened. Then you go to the elderly on streets. It's also challenging the youth on streets. Like they are competing.
I think with every age they're represented over there.
On the streets.
Yes.
You have babies, because they are carrying one old,
you will see a toddler, yes.
They are carrying 3, 4, 5. There is a teenage, there's an adult man, either in the wheel or walking there, pretending. Then there are people putting on like... Why don't we discuss how... These are Ugandans. Butabika is coming out to say it has challenges. But who's talking about Butabika? Probably because none of them has people there.
The people being represented are actually coming out and calling their representatives to do that.
The vacuum of the entrance. Like, it is the first thing we should feel whenever we hear the name honorable. When do they speak for the people? I think, in as much as we respect the existence of politics and Parliament being a theatre of the same, we may not focus on that. I think that can't be the agenda for entirely all the time. There's a lot of bickering in the House, and this has been consistently has been the definition of the kind of politics. If you want my parting shots on this, Philo, I'll say, what happened was procedurally probably right. No doubt. It needed to be done. Okay? But I think it showed us a lot of challenges Parliament is facing. And later, what's more, what we are facing as the electorate. Our expectations were probably narrowed, and you should reduce your expectations from what you saw if you're keen to notice
yes,
that the issues that matter will not be that hyped, probably because they're not well facilitated. I don't know, one day we need to also go and sit at the gate of Parliament to facilitate. I don't know how we shall do this.
Well,
so,
yes.
For me, Philo, lastly, the moral fabric of individuals who are public figures should be kept in check. That's a matter of fact.
Yes.
And I'm not against what happened. I'm sorry for Honorable Namuganza. We are waiting to see the fate if it falls in the hands of the President, which I know may not go as Parliament wishes. But this is not business primary for Parliament. And myself, if you want to take my straight opinion, I was a bit disappointed. I expected to have full house discussion. As kids go back to school, the government proposed that schools should not increase tuition.
Yes,
I think that would be a very good discussion for every person.
And given
in
the
Parliament,
timing
because,
as well.
Yeah, at least 90% of them are parents. If they're not parents, they have friends who are parents, sisters. Okay, they are children of someone. I think that would have been a very nice discussion. It would be timely to have the full members, some on Zoom, some being called to run, to discuss the fate of education of this country.
Well,
then Honorable passes.
I will tell you, Felix, that I share the disappointment. For me, it is how this was a matter that was given much attention and a lot of urgency, and to see it collected quite a number of the legislators coming. So if only we gave that attention, maybe they did what they had to do, fine, but the same attention should be given to other issues of national importance. And it's no wonder that even Ugandan citizens were expressing the disappointment and wondering and questioning where the priority of Parliament is when it comes to issues of national importance. And Jonah Chagaba here in Kampala says, what do you expect from a parliament of senior 6 guys? I think we should just level up qualifications for these guys to ensure sensible debates out of the House, because it's a question of intellectualism. All right, keep letting us know. And by the way, we'll be knowing the whole how this is going to turn out. Of course, per Rule 109, under which this process is being conducted, it requires that the decision is communicated to the President in 24 hours. Now, we are waiting for him to have the final say, since he's the main man who actually appoints the ministers. So we are waiting to see what he will be saying in regards to all of this. So our eyes are really widely open. But away from that discussion, looking at again some of our papers this morning, what's making the news. We did take you through the Daily Monitor and the New Vision, but also looking at the Citizen and also the Daily Nation. I will just start off with the Daily Nation this morning. The Battle Royale. Azimio claims Odinga won the election, but it was stolen in favor of Ruto. And Sherera 4 held secret meetings, says Gulie. Now, who is saying what, and what's the truth? That is a matter of discussion in the Daily Nation. Pay boost for civil servants after review of allowances. Living on ARVs, 2 young women born with a killer virus share their life experiences. Why local farms may soon land 20 billion Kenyan shillings state contracts. And giving you some more from the sports section. Arsenal silenced doubters with win over Manchester United. Again, a discussion that is probably going to last the entire week. Switching off to Tanzania, the Citizen, Paz of Ghost College getting millions from government. Africa is such a village, I will tell you that. And for over 10 years, the Mwalimu Nyerere University of Agriculture and Technology has received millions annually to operate, despite not enrolling a single student the entire time. Major changes in key health bill. Competition beckons at JNIA ground handling. 600 investors from Europe set sights on Tanzania. Some good news coming in for the country. Looking at an investigation mission to probe Lolibolo Ngarangoro relocations, and in Africa assassinations, UN reacts to brutal killing of Eswatini public figure. The Daily Nation, The Citizen, New Vision, Daily Monitor. You need to get yourself copies of these and see what's happening on the East African bloc. This morning, we're going in for a break. Mollen will be back here to give you more from weather and climate, give you the weather focus for today and the traffic updates. We'll be back.
Every waking day is a reminder just how beautiful this, our land, truly is. The kind of beauty that you can only find here, in the lush green all around us and the wondrous sights within. It's in the distinct aroma of our cooking, to the taste of food that takes you on a journey, in the sound of homecoming and the sound of Mother Earth. In the magnificence we find on our travels and the exciting moments we experience. Ours is the kind of beauty that comes in all things big and small. All we have to do is awaken our senses and truly enjoy what's uniquely ours. Explore Uganda, the Pearl of Africa.
*11.
Keeping an eye on all your balance the old way.
I got this. Yeah. Balance is. Yeah.
What is he up to now?
*11.
Keeping an eye on all your balance with the My Airtel app. You have the power in your pocket. The power to see all your balance in one place and in real time. Unlock that power with the My Airtel app. Visit the App Store or Google Play now.
I do miss him.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Get the most affordable 4G smartphone in Uganda from Airtel. Airtel. Now heavily discounted from 250,000 shillings to 150,000 shillings only. Yes, 150,000 shillings only to keep you connected to your loved ones.
Dial *175*94# to activate free 1 GB instantly and 100% double data on all weekly and monthly bundles for 3 months. Get one today while stock lasts from the nearest Airtel shop. With Airtel, the smartphone network.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
It is still Good Morning Uganda, and right now we'll be taking you through the traffic updates. Later than that, we'll also be getting into weather and climate. Now we look at some of the roads joining into the Kampala-Jinja Highway. You want to look into where the traffic could be, and one of those spots you can choose to avoid for this morning. Now if you're coming all the way from Nakawa and you're joining the Jinja Kampala Highway, there is a little bit of traffic only for the cars joining into that road, but those leaving the highway into Nakawa, you can expect that there is going to be a little bit of clear traffic right there for you. But then again, as you head into town, you look at some of the roads joining in from the lower Bugolobi side, it looks like that is also clear traffic for you, and you could actually choose to use that road. Now there is a bit of traffic on Nakawa Jinja Road right there as you join into the main highway, but that also is just a small distance as you headed towards the main highway. That does also clear as you mostly head further. Now you also look at the one coming from Nagulu side towards that is Kampala Jinja Highway. That is also a little bit of traffic for those joining into the road, but those leaving the main highway, it looks like that is quite some clear traffic. So if you're moving all the way on the Kampala Jinja Road, it looks like it is quite clear traffic right from that area, that Nagulu Nakawa area. Then again, you get into a little bit of traffic that does build up along the way, but also that also is just a small distance. That is from also the people coming from the upper side of Chinawataka. There is a little bit of clear traffic right there as you join the main highway, so that should be really clear to navigate as you're heading into town. Now you look at also, if you follow up the main road as you head into town, right up to the roundabout right there on the Jinja traffic roads or the traffic lights, that is also quite clear for this morning, so it will lead you into town without much delay over there. But also I've noticed there is a little bit of low visibility across town due to the foggy conditions that did develop earlier this morning, so you might also need to look out for your visibility while driving. Take it slow, especially for the roads that are having most of those foggy conditions. You might want to avoid that. Now away from that, we want to take a look at the weather situation over the country. Also for this morning, we are tapping in from our satellites. It is indicating quite a rainy system that did start off earlier today, and that is over the western side of Lake Victoria. That is extending all the way up to southwestern Uganda. We're talking about areas of Masaka. We're looking at Sembabule Rengo over there, all the way towards Mubende, Mbarara, and that crosses over onto the southwestern part of the country. I'm talking about the areas within the deep red colors right there into green. That is where we have a rainy system. It looks like that is also continuing mostly over the central part of Lake Victoria. So meaning that areas of Wakiso, Mukono, Kampala, we could be looking at rains developing for this morning and also later on in the afternoon. We are also tapping in from that system that is also continuing over southwestern Kabale Highlands, especially that is also extending up to Rwanda, Kigali. We're looking at rainy conditions for that area right as we speak, and that could actually propagate mostly westwards, meaning that that system will clear later as we head into the afternoon. We're also starting off with quite a sunny evening that is across areas of a sunny morning across areas of West Nile, and that is also towards central northern Uganda, where we have Gulu as well. and also a few clouds that are starting to develop across areas of the Karamoja region. We also have a little bit of a mix of clouds and sunshine. That is for eastern Uganda and also across Mount Elgon Highlands, but we could be looking at rainy conditions developing for that area, especially because we have more clouds that are starting to pile up over that area. We'll go ahead and take a look at the forecast for this morning, and that is coming in from the Uganda National Meteorological Authority. Also, in terms of temperatures, we could be looking at a chilly morning, especially for the southern sector, due to that rainy system that is continuing across the southern part of the country, mostly towards western Uganda. And we could be looking at the lower 20s as well. That is for the Lake Victoria Basin, as we also still have those moisturizing winds that are coming in from Lake Victoria, but also mostly due to the low pressure systems that have been developing lately across the Indian Ocean. That means they do come with them, they do bring with them very cold weather. We start off with the forecast for the central parts of that is the Lake Victoria Basin. We have Mukono, Kampala, Entebbe and Wakiso. We are forecasting isolated rains. Those will be across several places as the morning progresses. We are starting off with a chilly 23 degrees. Now we look at the central part of northern Uganda, where we are forecasting a mix of clouds and sunshine, and we could also be looking at a warm morning for you, quite hot actually. That will be at 30 degrees centigrade. We do expect more of the sunny conditions later, even in the afternoon. Now the eastern part of central, where we have Ruero, Woblenzi, Bururi, Nakaseke, we're forecasting a mix of clouds and sunshine, and we're looking at quite a pleasant morning over there at 26 degrees. The eastern part of the country, that is where we have a mix of clouds and sunshine for Soroti, Katakwi, Muria and Kumi. We're also forecasting a warm morning for you. Temperatures will be at 29 degrees centigrade. We're looking at the western side of Lake Victoria. That is when you look at Masaka, Kalisizo, Zimbabwe and Rakai, we're forecasting isolated showers, and that will be at 22 degrees centigrade. That is quite some cold weather over there. Now, southwestern Uganda, we have Mbarara, Ibanda, Bushenyi and Rubizi. We're forecasting isolated rains. Those will also be coming in later as the morning progresses, and also that system is likely to continue into the afternoon. Quite a cold morning at 20 degrees centigrade. We're looking at Mount Elgon Highlands, that is Mbale, Bududa, Buko and Sironko. We're forecasting a mix of clouds and sunshine, and temperatures will be at 26 degrees centigrade. Now also the eastern side of Lake Victoria Basin, Tororo, Busia, Iganga and Jinja, we're forecasting isolated showers that will be starting off with 24 degrees centigrade, quite some chilly weather, and we also expect that that will continue into the afternoon as more rains are forecast for that area. And of course, we'll be having more of that system also propagating mostly across the entire Lake Victoria Basin, but also more towards southwestern Uganda, that is Kabale Highlands inclusive, but also the Rwenzori area, where we're looking at mostly rainy conditions for this morning, but also that will be crossing over into the afternoon. We're looking at midwestern Uganda, also where we could be having more rains developing areas of Hoima, Masindi. You can expect to have some of those wet weather activities. Now we're also beginning to see a pickup in wet weather activities for the Elgon region, and that is also extending towards areas of central. So it is quite a pickup, but still those will be for just a few couple of days, and we'll be getting back into the dry weather as we still continue with a dry season across the country. Now there are new reports as we talk about more on the climate news, especially with pollution. There are new reports that are showing that most urban centers are actually the ones contributing 70% of the pollution when we talk about the air quality as well. Now this report was just given out with collaboration of the World Meteorological Organization, talking about how urban centers have actually accelerated or increased the amount of pollution. And also to add that is that most of that percentage is also inclusive of the greenhouse gases. We're talking about methane, especially talking about carbon dioxide, and there is a call for more of the industrial action to be put out of the industrial of the urban centers, because at the same time these are the same places where we have a bigger population, meaning that most of the effects that comes from this pollution will also be going directly into the population. So if some of these companies or industries can be put out of urban centers, it does reduce on the effect, especially the direct effects to human beings, but also long term we're looking at the climate crisis, especially with production of carbon dioxide. Now there is technology that has been coming out on how to tap into harnessing carbon dioxide before it escapes into the atmosphere. Now most of that, there has been progress in Japan, but also China last year did announce a project that is of if most of the companies or most of the industries that do produce carbon dioxide as a byproduct, they could actually harness it and feed it back into the ground. That is technology that is advancing, and they are trying to make sure that at least most of the big polluters, China itself is a big polluter, number one on that list, and second to that is the USA. So those are the countries that we believe should be adapting to that kind of culture, and in that we can reduce the amount of greenhouse gases that are going into the atmosphere, and henceforth avoid the climate catastrophe that we could be looking at, not just for the extreme weather events, but also most of the disruptions it has actually caused with our seasons. Well, that is it in terms of weather updates for now. We do have Good Morning Uganda agenda coming up. Later than that, we'll also be going into sports, after which we'll be taking you through Good Morning Uganda Extra. My name is Mollen, Kenyena, wishing you a good morning.
Welcome to English in a Minute. This expression seems like it could have some depth to it. Let's hear what Anna and Jonathan have to say about this expression.
So, you remember how Chuck really wanted to be part of our bowling team?
Oh yeah, he started to lay it on thick about how great he was to our team captain, Marco. But I'm sure Marco didn't believe him.
Well, it worked. Chuck will be joining the team at our next practice.
To lay it on thick means to overstate something. You try to say that something is much better or much worse than it really is because you want to impress someone. You can lay it on thick using blame or giving praises, like Chuck did with his bowling skills. And that's English in a Minute.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way, because we are